And the context of this next question is pre-conversion. What were the hard parts of converting to Islam?
The hard parts, I would say, it might be the stress of trying to find the answers. Because this brother who brought me to Islam, I would say he put a little bit too much emphasis on being really, really quick. Tried to convert to Islam as soon as possible. You know, he was like, "You may die tomorrow. Convert to Islam. Come on, you can do this." And you know, because I have like some level of personal independence when it comes to this sort of thing, I didn't get too attached to this. So I wasn't like, "Oh no, I better convert today." There was none of that. I took my time, and even nowadays, now that I have some sort of like greater Islamic knowledge, I know that you don't need to convert within a day. So long as you have sincerity, it's possible that if you are sincerely looking for answers and you die before you receive answers, there are interpretations in Islam that you would go to heaven because it's based on sincerity. Actions are judged by intentions. If you were going to convert in the future, but Allah decided that you were going to die beforehand, but you're still sincere, it's possible that when on the day of resurrection, you'll be resurrected as a Muslim. Because there's a story that's narrated of a person who was trying to gain knowledge to become a scholar, but he died at a very young age, but he was still resurrected as a person who was a scholar. And so likewise, we can take that story, although I'm unsure of its authenticity. We can take that story and apply that to this. If you're sincere, you don't have to convert within like 3 hours of learning about Islam. Think about these questions that you have. Think about the answers that you have been given, and don't be too quick to join Islam. If you have your questions answered, then go ahead. But don't put your questions to the side and join Islam head first, because if you hop into Islam really quickly, if you have that mindset of putting things to the side and just going for it, it's possible that you'll do the exact same by leaving Islam. You'll get questions that you put to the side and then you just leave Islam. And that's the consequence that you may get if you don't think about these questions that you formulate. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Okay, and what was the easiest part of your build-up to converting to Islam?
The easiest part when it comes to the build-up of converting to Islam, to be honest, I hear many people who convert to Islam, they have difficulties with their parents. I found that okay. There wasn't really that was all right. But something that made it easy, I'd say, is because I already believed. I believed that Islam was true quite early on before I took my declaration of faith. Maybe a couple of weeks beforehand. So when I was learning about Islam and I was gaining these answers, because it was like a gradual process. There was no one single process that made it easy for me to convert to Islam. When I converted, I'd already believed. It's not like I convert to Islam and then I answer my questions. I already had these questions answered because I was very thorough in making sure that I have these questions answered. So that made it much easier for me because I already had this faith of, okay, Islam managed to answer every single question that I've had. I've tried to, bombard Islam with all these questions, all these controversial ideas, and Islam has had the perfect answer every single time. And I know that if I convert, I'm going to have more questions in the future. But given the fact that Islam has managed to answer all of these questions through faith, it is very, very likely, undoubtable even, that Islam is going to have answers for all of those questions in the future as well. But you should make sure that you have the major questions answered before you convert. And then these minor questions, these smaller questions, if Islam is able to answer all of these major doubts of yours and help you with these major doubts, then undoubtedly Islam will be able to answer these minor doubts after you convert. Okay, so you don't need to have every single question answered, because even us Muslims, even if we've been a Muslim for like 30, 40 years, we're still going to run into questions. We're not going to enter the faith and all of a sudden become scholars who know absolutely everything. We're still going to run into questions. We're going to run into minor doubts and think, oh, here's a criticism of Islam that I've never heard of. I need to look into this. But when that happens, you're not going to leave Islam and be like, okay, I'll leave Islam and then I'll only convert back to Islam once I have this small question answered. That's not wise. If you do that, then that's a form of arrogance, because you're looking for any reason to distance yourself from the stress of having to answer questions. So I'd say the easiest part for me was that I tried to get these difficult questions over and done with straight away, so that it was easier for me to accept Islam, because I only had teeny tiny doubts to deal with, which was something that I didn't need to fret about too much. They weren't stressing me out. So for that reason, there was almost no stress in converting to Islam. The only stress really was trying to clear the major doubts to begin with.
Yeah, sounds like you did a lot of hard work, but it all worked out in the end for you. So what about the most enjoyable part?
The most enjoyable part of converting to Islam, I wouldn't really say that there was like any point where I thought, I'm enjoying this. This is lovely. I'm loving it. I'd say the entire process of converting to Islam, because I was converting to a religion that was so foreign to me to begin with, and is so alien to my culture. The entire process, there wasn't really a moment where I thought, answering all these questions, this is lovely. I only felt this like ease and relaxation maybe some time after I converted, because it took time for me to get used to this change. So I'd say there wasn't a single point where I felt enjoyment and relaxation, or I'd say enjoyment of Islam only came once I felt familiar with it, which is exactly why I was saying that I started to enjoy prayer once I had a few days of understanding the prayer and knowing that I got it right. So, and even psychologically speaking, you're only going to feel what's known as cognitive ease of the mind, if you're familiar with something. So if something's unfamiliar to you, it's going to be difficult to accept. And that's why many, like in many circumstances, you'll hear of people who receive the truth, but it takes them a while to accept that truth. Even though they haven't done any research, there was still a jump from not accepting this answer to accepting this answer, because all it took was time. All it took was that, familiarity. So I'd say enjoyment, when it came to converting to Islam, I'd say it came once I felt familiar with Islam, which only occurred after I converted.
Okay, so let's talk about your day of conversion now. And let's talk about the build up. So maybe in the week that was building up to it, what was happening there? What was going through your mind? Why did it all happen?
On the day of conversion, I was actually anticipating doing it in the later on. But the brother who brought me to Islam, he just called me and said, do you want to take this declaration of faith? And I thought, oh, this is sudden. Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, go for it. Why not? Because I realized I didn't really have a reason to say no. So I thought, yeah, just go for it, I guess. There's nothing really stopping me. And that's a blessing from Allah, because it was a decision that I didn't really deliberate. I wasn't thinking, okay, let me think about it for an hour. Because if I did that, I knew I was going to be like, yeah, let's leave it a week, which is a form of denial, because I had no reason not to convert to Islam at that point. I had all my questions answered, all the major questions answered. I knew how to pray. So if I had rejected taking that declaration of faith and like postponing it, that would be a form of rejection of Islam. It's like a temporary rejection of Islam. And so if I died beforehand, if I died in between my rejection and when I actually get round to it, you never know if I would have died as a Muslim. So it's a blessing from Allah that I was able to just go for it and not fret about, oh, but what about this? What about that? Because the only issues that I had were minor issues, like very, very tiny questions in Islam that don't really matter, like the descriptions of the afterlife. And, you don't need this information to believe in Islam. So the actual process of converting to Islam, it was very quick. It was very sudden. It wasn't something that I'd anticipated and prepared and planned. It was just a call. Do you want to convert to Islam? I was like, yeah, go for it. Why not? And all praise be to Allah. I converted that day.
So how did you feel?
I would say there wasn't like tears of joy and like celebration on my behalf, because I wasn't like, it wasn't spiritual for me. It was just intellectual. I thought, yeah, I'll accept Islam because it logically seems true. I was only going from an intellectual point of view. So this brother who brought me to Islam, he was, hyping me up, saying, yeah, once you convert, you're going to cry. It's going to be this. It's going to be so much. It's going to be the best feeling of your life. I was like, okay, yeah, if you say so, you never know. I mean, yeah, sure. And then I took my declaration of faith, and his family watched, and they're all celebrating and cheering and whistling, and which was very, very wholesome. That was a sight to see. And he had it recorded as well, which I haven't looked back at it yet, so maybe I should. It was a very wholesome moment, but I wouldn't say it was like emotional on my behalf, because I wasn't looking for a spiritual connection to Allah. I was just thinking, I want answers. I want to know the truth. I don't really care about, the spiritual feeling. And so for that reason, when you have that emotional feeling, when you take that declaration of faith, that's based on, your spiritual like release, because, you found the straight path. But I wasn't looking for that spiritual, completion. So I missed out on that experience. But for those who are looking to convert to Islam and you want that spiritual healing, you want that completion, then when you do take this declaration of faith, you experience that like excitement, that I wouldn't say that thrill, but like that relief that you've done it. You've found the truth, and now you're on what's known as the straight path, the sirat al-mustaqim. So I'd say. So for me, it was, I'd say, underwhelming, because I was expecting there to be tears of joy and celebrations on my behalf, but I was just, I mean, I was happy, but I wasn't like, there was nothing really spiritual in it. I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, now I'm a Muslim. Nice, I've got the answers. I'm happy. I'm content. But there wasn't really any like spiritual completion where I thought, yes, I've made it. This is it. I feel so great. That's something that came afterwards, gradually. That's the spiritual aspect, the spiritual happiness. That's like that was like a gradual process afterwards for me, because I wasn't looking for spirituality at the time. So it came after my conversion.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. So you've been a Muslim now for about a year. How has Islam changed your life?
Oh, it's changed my life so much. Like when it comes to my character, I'd say that's the biggest impact. Because before I was a Muslim, I did not care about my character. I was very selfish. I was like very arrogant. Because I was having all of these philosophical thoughts and gaining all of these answers, was everyone else was out partying and stuff. And I thought, yeah, look at them and look at me. And I was taking credit for my lifestyle. And now that I'm a Muslim, I've humbled myself, because an important component of Islam is, not taking credit for your own good deeds, because it's only by the will of Allah, that you do good deeds. And a common phrase in Islam that you hear is La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, which means there's no strength or power except by the will of Allah. And so with that in mind, that's something that has helped me tremendously with curing my arrogance and like narcissism and, feeling of like superiority. And so now whenever I do any good, and I'd say I'm in a much better place than I was before, I no longer feel that, oh, look at me, I'm up here whilst everyone else is down there. I no longer have that arrogant mindset. And that's a blessing from Allah, because I was sincere in my request to him. Even during prayer, I would ask Allah, please just guide me to avoid this corrupt thinking. Please just help me get rid of this. Please help me take the steps to get rid of this. And all praise be to Allah. I've improved my character a lot. And I also, I've improved the way that I deal with other people. I care much more about Islamic manners. And, with the narration where the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, he said, have good manners. But before converting to Islam, I honestly did not care about manners. It just wasn't my priority because I didn't see any benefit in being good to other people. But now it's a great priority for me. It's important for me to, make sure I have good conduct and make sure that I'm treating other people well. But it's only by the will of Allah, and I can't take any credit for that.
That's true, yeah. Isn't it just such a great feeling when you feel that you're being a better person, and this is what the religion teaches.
Yeah, it makes me so happy. It makes me feel so fulfilled and satisfied. And then I think to the people who disbelieve, and I think how can you reject Islam? It's so beautiful and it improves you so much. Like, this is, only a religion by God will help you to this extent. But I'm so grateful, and gratitude is incredibly important in Islam. There's a verse in the Quran that says, be righteous so that you may be grateful. So, there's some interpretations that being grateful to Allah is actually more important than, your actual righteousness in itself. Just make sure that you have that gratitude for the blessings that you've been given. And a key blessing that I have been given, the main blessing, is the blessing of Islam. I'm now a Muslim. I'm now, I'm traveling along the straight path, the path of Allah that He has decreed upon us, saying, follow this path. And, only by the will of Allah, I thought deeply about it, and I was, sincerely trying to find the answers, and now I feel as though I'm in a good place. It's a great blessing, and I'm so happy every single day. I'm so happy. I rarely ever feel like any sort of sadness, and if I do, it's only like temporary sadness about this world. I'm just a very satisfied person, very content, spiritually complete, which is just a blessing from Allah, and it's not something that I was expecting when I converted to Islam. So it's just, I'm very happy overall.
So what sort of things are you doing now to maintain your new Islamic life?
That's a really good question. Maybe like a couple of months after converting, I decided to go to a local mosque for Ramadan, because I thought that would be, I was given an invitation by someone, because I eventually went to a mosque. I prayed there for one of the Friday prayers where you go to the mosque each week. And then I went another time. And when I went there again, I met a brother who I got their phone number, and he said, "Oh, come along to this other mosque for Ramadan." And so I did that. And ever since, I would go there almost every single day to ask the imam there loads and loads of questions, because I just absolutely loved learning about Islam. I was a Muslim at the time, because I was doing my prayers on Friday, and I was sticking to the faith. I was doing my 5 daily prayers, but I'd go to the mosque each day for Ramadan, most days, to ask the imam there loads of questions, get to know the brothers, and I swear by Allah, when I went to the mosque for the first few days, I was so happy and excited, because my relationship with the brothers there was so good. Like, before Islam, I found it so difficult to connect to other people. I felt as though there was a gap between us. I felt as though we didn't have that spark, that connection. I felt like there was something missing. But when I went to the mosque for Ramadan, everyone had such amazing conduct, and they treated me so well. They were so welcoming. I loved making jokes of them, and being playful and talking about this and talking about that. It was so great, and may Allah have mercy on all of them, and guide them all to the highest level of paradise. I mean, it was fantastic. So I'd say that was one of the things that I would do to help me stick to Islam, because it's I believe it's an Islamic concept that gaining knowledge is one of the ways of improving your faith and your dedication to Islam, is by gaining knowledge and better understanding Islam. And so by going to the mosque, not only was I gaining knowledge, but I was also, surrounded by really great brothers who were dedicated to the religion. I wasn't meeting Muslims outside of the mosque who never go to the mosque, because I only met these brothers through the mosque. So my only interaction with Muslims in person was, those of fantastic character, those who are dedicated to the religion, those who love speaking about Islam. And that's something that I absolutely loved, and that's something that really, really helped me, keep firm on Islam, because I had other people to, support me. And, then I became much more familiar. It felt less strange being at the mosque. I felt less, like an alien. So, that really helped, being at the mosque and speaking to the Muslims in person. So, if a person's thinking about converting to Islam, I'd highly, highly, highly recommend they go to a mosque, because they accept non-Muslims, they accept Christians. It's a great place to learn about Islam and to better understand why Islam is the true religion, and how to practice it, and how to improve your conduct, and how to improve various aspects of your life. So I'd say going to the mosque was one of the key ways that I managed to keep firm on the faith.
Okay, Ryan. So what do you feel is your greatest accomplishment so far in Islam?
In Islam, my greatest accomplishment, I would say it's my dedication to Islam. Many people, when they start practicing Islam, they would inevitably find obstacles that put them away. And what's important is learning how to respond to these obstacles. And all praise be to Allah. I feel as though I managed to respond quite well to these obstacles that I face, like where I would receive criticisms by non-Muslims, and I'd face hostilities here, and I'd face difficulties in expressing my faith when I'm in like a non-Muslim school, for example, and even now in a non-Muslim university. I'd say what's really helped me, keep to the faith is just having that dedication. That's I'd say that's my biggest accomplishment, because despite all of these difficulties, these tests that Allah has given me as a reason to test how I would respond, and I feel like I've done a satisfactory job at responding to these tests by Allah, and I hope that I please Him by the way that I've responded, because I try to respond with patience, which is a key concept in Islam to improve your character. Having patience, the Islamic word is sabr. It's very important to make sure that you have patience, and that when you face difficulties and you face hardship, you remain patient with Allah. You think, okay, I'm not going to just leave Islam until I have this question answered, because that's not wise. That's arrogance. You have to have patience. You have to, we have to have our patience tested to see how we would respond. We can't join Islam and think that we won't be tested. In the Quran, Allah tells us, do they really think that they can join Islam and not be tested? So Allah is saying that, everyone is going to be tested. Whether you're a Muslim or non-Muslim, you're going to be given a test of your character and your conduct and how you respond to difficulties, because that best reflects your character. A person who is happy, their character is going to be completely different to how they are when they're struggling and suffering. And their true colors show when you see them in that difficulty. So that's why we're given tests. And so when you receive tests, it's important how you respond. So I'd say my biggest accomplishment is how I have responded to these tests. I responded with patience, and I've tried to, not think, okay, I should give up. This is stressful. I feel like as though I've been able to respond well, and I hope Allah is pleased with me in the way that I've responded to the tests that He's given me and the obstacles that I've faced. So I'd say that is my biggest accomplishment. I didn't give up, and that's only a blessing from Allah, and I can't take credit for it, because Allah guides whom He wills, and He misguides whom He wills. And I feel ever so grateful that Allah has guided me to keep on the straight path when I face various issues with the people who attack Islam, and when I face issues with different arguments trying to disprove Islam, and I have to go through the stress of researching it frantically and thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to respond to this? And I do always find an answer. And when I'm looking for these answers, and I'm looking for ways to respond to people who attack Islam, I've been able to respond appropriately, and I've been able to keep dedicated to the faith. I'm not abandoning Islam and thinking, okay, I'll only adhere to the religion once I have this answer fixed. I have the faith that Islam has been able to answer all my previous questions. It's always been Allah has always been reliable every single time I've had an issue, because Allah is always there. Allah will not abandon you. So I know now with certainty that when I do face an issue, if I keep dedicated to Islam, then I will have that issue. I will be able to, get through that issue with patience. So I'd say that's my biggest accomplishment. I didn't give up. I didn't give in when I was tested, which is a blessing from Allah.
That's great, Ryan. So earlier you talked about your parents very briefly. So now tell me about the consequences you have felt from accepting Islam. So there's the family consequences, also friends and society.
I'm very thankful. Converting to Islam, I haven't had much backlash at all. And I'm not too sure how common it is for people who convert to Islam to receive backlash. I hear many stories of people who struggle to rekindle a relationship with their parents and their friends once they convert to Islam because they're treated as an alien. Like, even though, like, a person's friends know their character because they've been friends for many, many years, as soon as they convert to Islam, it's all of a sudden as if they've never known them. And I'm not too sure how often that happens, but for me, all praise be to Allah, I've still managed to maintain good connections with the people once I told them that I was a Muslim. So my parents, for example, when I told my mum that I was a Muslim, I'd say she reacted the worst, but I wouldn't even say that she reacted badly. She unfortunately has like stereotypes in her mind from the media. And she was very honest about it. She said, but in the media, Muslims, and the terrorism and, all this and ISIS. And I say, that's not Islam. That's, some deviant Muslims who don't follow the religion correctly. But that's it. She would still take her car and drop me off to the mosque every single, most days that I ask her when she's not working. She's been incredibly supportive, and, may Allah guide her to the straight path and guide her to have sincerity. And with my father, I'm not in much contact with him. However, I told him that I was a Muslim over text because that's how I contacted him over text. And he said that he believes in God, but he doesn't adhere to a particular religion. He's not religious. He just believes in some God. And praise, I'd say praise be to Allah that he believes that Jesus is a messenger, because that's a stepping stone for understanding why Islam is true. The belief that Jesus is a messenger is one of the key. You can almost think of it as like a pillar of Islam. In fact, it's actually a pillar of Iman. Believing in the books. For example, believing that the Quran is the word of God, believing that the gospel was sent to Jesus, peace be upon him. So it's essential that you believe that Jesus is a messenger of God. So hopefully, only by the will of Allah, he'll be guided to the straight path if he has this sincerity and he has the pure intention. And my friends at school, they reacted fine. To begin with, they were in disbelief because before Islam, I was a class clown. I just make jokes. I didn't really care about my future. I was like, I'll just, just enjoy my time, because I didn't think that there was going to be a time after this life. So I thought, may as well enjoy my time now, mess about, not worry about anything. So once I told people that I was a Muslim, they're like, there's no way, come on. And it took a while for I had to keep telling them, no, I'm being serious. But it took them like a few minutes to believe me, but they eventually did. And that's why it's recommended in Islam not to joke too much. Making jokes, it's you can see it as like salt to food. You shouldn't have too much of it, just a little bit of salt. So when you're speaking to people, you shouldn't be too humorous. You shouldn't laugh too much. And, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, actually recommended us not to, laugh too much because people won't take us seriously. And this is exactly what I experienced. And it said, and Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, he said this 1400 years before we experienced it. And it's even a psychological concept that people accept, which is that, if you make too many jokes, people are going to take you as a joke when you're trying to be serious. But once my friends did realize that I have generally accepted Islam, they would ask me questions, and they would say explicitly, I'm not trying to attack Islam. It's okay that you're a Muslim. I just want to ask this. So there was, I wouldn't say they were supportive. They just weren't against Islam, which is one of the blessings that Allah has given me of not testing me in that sense. Because that would have been difficult to face. And I'm really glad that I managed to, convert to Islam without having to suffer the backlash of, society, of my family, of my friends. And now that I'm in university, I'm in a different area, like 100 miles away. People are responding very, very well to me being a Muslim, and they actually praise me for avoiding the life, like this current life, avoiding the pleasures of this life. I tell them, I don't party. I don't feel a need to drink alcohol. I don't feel a need to stay up really late hours of the night. And not only does that please Allah, but that also pleases the people. And when a companion of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he actually asked, "Oh, Messenger of Allah, how do I please the people and Allah?" Because, we're human. We want both. We want to be able to please Allah, but we also don't want to have to, face backlash of the people. We want to please the people as well. And so Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said that if you want to please Allah and the people, then stop caring about this world. And since implementing that and trying to implement that, which is essential, by the way, trying to implement Islam, when you receive information, try to implement it. Application is more important than the actual knowledge itself. I've found that my relationship with people is just improved so much now that I'm, not caring about this world to such an extent that I live an unhealthy life. I care about this world, but not so much so that I sacrifice Islam, because I now have my priorities straight. All praise be to Allah.
In your path to Islam so far, is there one thing that you would change?
Oh, that's a really good question. Is there anything that I would change when it came to my path to Islam? I would say I wish that I asked for guidance more, because, if you're sincere in your intention, you will be guided to the truth. Okay? And if you ask Allah genuinely, you generally say, you don't even have to say Allah, just God, any God. If Christianity is true, then Christian God, just, God in general, whatever religion is true, guide me to that correct religion. I wish I did that more so that the process would be easier. All praise be to Allah. The process was quite easy for me. I didn't find too much stress, but what would have made it just slightly easier for me was if I, if I tried to make my own prayers and, pray in my own way that felt natural to me. And, me asking God, "Oh God, whatever religion is true, please guide me to that true religion." But only by the will of Allah, I was guided to the true religion without having to ask, every single day. It would be something at the back of my mind, but I wouldn't, put it into action. I wouldn't pray. But the fact that I still asked God for guidance, and so, for that reason, I believe that sincerity is what brought me to Islam. However, to improve sincerity, which is what is essential, you have to put your sincerity into action. And you do that by praying. So to make it easier for me, I wish I had prayed more or prayed at all before converting to Islam, just so that I make sure that, I know that if I am brought to a religion, I know that's the true religion. But that's just something to make it easier for me. You don't need to physically pray. It's just something that might make the process easier for you.
And so what's the best advice that anyone has given you about Islam?
I would say definitely the advice of how to avoid arrogance, because that was the main issue that I had with my character. It was the arrogance. I felt as though because I had good things in my life, good blessings from Allah, I thought, well, in that case, I'm better than other people. And, Allah talks about people who believe that their knowledge gave them good things in this world. And Allah condemns those people and says, no, you should actually, thank Allah for the good things that you have. Don't attribute it to your own knowledge. Don't think that you are the one who gives yourself these good things. It's actually all from Allah. If Allah decides, actually, you're not going to know the truth, then you're not going to know the truth. Okay. Things only happen by the will of Allah. And understanding that concept, that understanding of la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, which means there's no strength or power except by Allah. That has really, really helped me. So whenever I do a good deed or whenever I learn something new, I no longer feel proud to such an extent that I feel arrogant. I feel happy, I feel proud, but not to the extent that it's arrogance. And I think, okay, now I'm better than these people who don't have this blessing. I no longer have that. And now I feel as though that has helped me so much with making sure that I have a good character, make sure that I have humility, make sure that I'm humble in my prayer, and to make sure that I'm sincere, because this type of arrogance, it makes the heart rusty. It makes the heart impure. And impurity, as we've spoken about, is something that's really important if you want to be on the straight path. Okay, so the Islamic advice of praising Allah instead of praising yourself, that has really, really helped me, not only with my conduct, but also helped me with purifying my heart.
Yeah, this is a game breaker, isn't it? When you can feel that, when you can just throw it away, that arrogance, and you try and get rid of it all the time. It's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, it's really, really great.
But it's a constant battle, though, isn't it? Because we've always got that part of it in us. That arrogance is always there.
Yeah, we all have like Satan, whispering to us and telling us these bad things, and that's where our arrogance comes from. It comes from Satan. So when we think of ourselves as better than others, that's from Satan. We have to acknowledge this if we want to be able to step away from these thoughts.
When you realize it, when you actually realize that it's a problem and you try to do something about it, it's one of the greatest feelings.
It really is. Yeah, I'm so grateful, and I'm happy that I've managed to settle this only by the will of Allah.
Yeah, so it's going to be an ongoing process for you and I. So what's the worst advice that came from a Muslim to you?
Worst advice that came from a Muslim? Oh, I've not thought of that before. I love that question. What's the worst advice I've been given by a Muslim? I'd say it's the idea of trying to reinterpret Islam for the modern times. Okay? Because Islam, as we know, is a religion that is revealed by Allah. It's by God. Okay, it's not a man-made religion, and Islam is made as a complete religion. In the Quran, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, has said that this religion is complete. So when he was seeing his companions praying, as Abu Bakr, may peace and blessings be upon him, as he was seeing Abu Bakr leading the prayer, he felt as though, I've done my job. And it was on that day that he passed away, that the angel of death took his soul. And it was near that time that he received the verse of the Quran where Allah says, I have completed your religion. I've completed my favor upon you, given you your religion, and called it Islam. So with this in mind, we know that Islam is a complete religion. It's not something that can be changed by us just because we live in different times, because Islam was made for all times, for all people. Islam isn't just for people who are Arabs, okay? It's not just for people who speak Arabic. It's not just for people who have any darkness in their skin. It's not just for people living at that time when it was revealed, okay? So 1400 years later, yes, we live in very, very different times. However, this is still the same religion that was revealed by God now than it is 1400 years ago. It's the same religion, and it still applies. So when we take these Islamic rulings, and if we take the advice of let's change these Islamic rulings so that it suits our current society, then we've deviated from the straight path. Why? Because we care more about culture than we do Islam. And if we care more about something other than Islam, then our priorities aren't straight, and that leads to misalignment within the soul. Your heart becomes dirty, filthy, you lose that purity, and that's something. And then once you lose that purity, then you stray away from the truth. And if you think, okay, Islam needs to be changed, if that's what you believe, then you'll stray away from the truth, and you'll think, well, if Islam needs to be changed, then it can't be true. And that's exactly the issue of believing that we need to reinterpret Islam to fit modern times, because modern times are not perfect. Islam is perfect. So I'd say that's the worst advice I've been given.
Okay, Ryan, thanks for that. So we're going to have to start wrapping it up now. I've had a great time talking to you, and I really enjoyed, and I'm just really I'm happy that so far what you've learned about Islam and the way you're implementing it really makes me happy.
I really appreciate that, brother. It's such a fantastic opportunity to be here on this podcast. I really appreciate you having me on, and I just want to thank you. And I pray that Allah guides you to the straightest path and the highest levels of paradise, and that you make a good impact for the people who are trying to think about Islam.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, same to you. So for our listeners out there, they're thinking about converting to Islam. What advice do you have for them?
I'd say make sure you keep sincerity. Make sure that you prioritize Islam or prioritize finding the truth over these worldly matters of, pleasing your friends, pleasing the people, trying to fit in with traditions of your parents. Think more about what the actual truth is. Keep away from your desires. Keep your biases away when it comes to trying to take like an objective stance at what the truth is. Make sure that you have sincerity. And I say, make sure that you ask God for guidance and be sincere. Because if you ask God for guidance, you're going to be guided. Because there's no reason for Allah to make you deviate if you are genuine in your request for God to guide you. So that's what I say.
Anything else?
I'd say that's the key point. And make sure that you surround yourself with good people, because you become the people that you associate yourself with. And Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, has told us, avoid bad company because you'll become like them. So make sure that you're speaking to people of good character when it comes to religious discourse. If you're speaking to a friend who's an atheist and they're attacking Islam and saying that it's about terrorism and all that, just avoid those types of people. Make sure that they have good character. Make sure that you're surrounding yourself with good people so that you're closer to the truth. Okay,
Ryan. So thanks once again for coming onto the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It was very good. It was I loved it so much. Thank you very much, brother.
Yeah, hopefully you can come on again and we can talk about another topic.
That'd be really good. Yeah.
Okay, great. If anyone out there, any listeners, if you have any questions, you can come and talk to us live. We have a live Q&A, which happens, it's a weekly Q&A. You can come on live if you've got some questions. If you don't want to come on live, you can submit a question by email. Just go to our website. It's ontoislam.com. And we'll see you next time. So I'll leave you with the words of peace. May the peace and blessings of God be upon you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.